It's fine for you to rape chicks on the bus in France, and you could take shits, and they call it dance. I'm not a racist, but I don't like France, they're gay.
Et je m'appelle Bonjour.
They used to have a king back in the day that was a fucking inbred. Couldn't win a war with fucking England, where they suck down tea all day.
Oh, Trump, dilly-dally, chalk,
And then Paris got invaded by some German pedophiles, and the French collaborated, raided. Fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans and the French. What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing on your friends? The Arabs need to get out, or the place blows up. Let's help the French out. Fill the air with drones and watch them freak out. Syrians are fucking gay.
Allahu snack bar.
The Dutch are uneducated, and Italians all should die. But the Frenchmen are the gayest. Fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans and the French. What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing on your friends? Fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans and the French. What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing on your friends? And the French are the afraidest. They surrender all the time. They like boners in the anus. Fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans and the French. What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing on your friends? Fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans, fuck Europeans and the French. What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing? What's wrong with peeing on your friends? The French.
Somehow, oh, make thyself known.
In a sense. This was not all at once but over time. For many years I thought it was all a random vivid dream that seemed real but couldn't have been, but then as time went on I slowly began to realize I hadn't imagined it. Especially the day I went into a coma and stood before the Almighty himself and was given an insight to why he specifically made me what for and what was going to happen to me because of it. All while I stood on a beach with him that was actually the multiverse. Each grain of sand on itself was a universe. Then later I found out that the multiverse I saw was actually the life of each and every living being he made throughout all creation. Enough to take up a whole stretch of a beach setting. This was the beginning of my journey. He took me along over the 3.5 days I was in a coma from a brain hemorrhage. Like the worst headache I ever had. When I woke 3 days later, the vein in my temple that puffs out when you get med was gone and has not come back yet. This is my testimony as one of the 2 witnesses. When Jesus drew his last breath and the tapestry in Caesar's palace ripped and the floor cracked, I was brought back to my body by Gabriel and awoke. One thing I will say is that these DMT entities, as you call them, are not as friendly as you have been led to think. It sounds like you have only met the guardians so far. They will be kind and gentle. They remind me of the storytale fairies actually, but there are those who are trapped there, locked away in mystical like sealed areas, banished from being capable of interacting with anyone from here or there. They are vicious, sadistic and very dangerous. always seeking someone foolish enough to convince them to unlock the seals that keep them in exile. Also, time goes by differently there. For every hour here it seems like only 15 minutes goes by there. You can turn your attention towards a scenario and before you know it the sun has set and the entire day has gone by. I remember sometimes being trapped there for days and not even realizing it. When I return I'm weak and dizzy because I haven't eaten or drank anything for 2 or 3 days. One last thing I should add, I'm drawn not only to this place still but I can cross between here and there just by will alone, as if it is calling to me, the gauntlet of the Sphinx. And I have met both the spirit of Akhenaten and the spirit of the boy king who used to play in this labyrinth constantly as a kid, and they have shared with me the keys to solving the maze. I shall make a video and post it on my channel here soon along with how to defeat the entity known as Chaos who guards the gate to the final realm where he awaits the warrior skilled enough to solve its 700 realm maze and puzzles so that he can finally find the warrior he has been searching for that will face the enemy who led to his imprisonment that got away, leaving him to take the blame for what occurred that got him cast into there in the first place. Give me a day or so for there is much to put together to explain all that I have learned. If you are a constant traveler to this place I suggest you ask them to show you the elemental astral realm. It is the most amazing place I ever saw there. The very elements themselves are alive and have various energy type forms, walls of fire, geysers of water, small clouds, and they all have their own personalities and ways of communicating. My name I was usually known to them all. There was Kid Vid. I don't know why but they all called me that or the kid and they all seemed to know who I was more than I did. I was trapped in this realm as a kid. For years I was plagued by the need to return to this realm. In this realm there is a place, a cube, that hovers in mid-air. On this cube there were millions of multidimensional gateways, each one a specific place assigned to an individual. It was while I was trapped there that my body was abducted by something from another world and began my path towards becoming who I have become today, an Anunnaki, augmented, like the tales of the Nephilim of old. This place is known by many names in the past. The Labyrinth of the Sphinx, the Abyss of the Assyrian Serpent God Set, the Labyrinth of Pandora, the 700-level Maze of the Minotaur, the Bottomless Pit of Tiamat. There is a large chain that separates our realm from there along the outer boundaries of its borders. In my years trapped there I saw many dead spirits that were as solid and in flesh like bodies as real as you and me, some I had heard of and some I never even knew before. In this realm I found there is a way out, a secret tunnel that leads back to our world. There in that realm the portal is found in a region known as the Chasm of Oblivion, a mountain pass-like area that leads towards a swirling vortex almost like a black hole. Once in the chasm there is no escaping its pull and all are drawn into the vortex. However, about a quarter of the way down, along the chasm wall to the left there is a small cavern-like ridge. Inside is a secret tunnel that leads back to this world. Here a gateway-like portal will fixate itself onto the nearest solid object, an archway anything similar in design. Runes will begin to glow in a strange language I've never seen anywhere here before, but they do kind of resemble the zodiac symbols. A white doorway will appear both there and here where you will cross through. One thing you'll notice is that the air is not as damp and muggy as it is there. Now that I have laid all that out I shall explain the solution to beating the labyrinth. You can traverse the 700 realms inside if you want, but there is a way to complete the puzzle and go straight to the end from the very first puzzle. To do this you must acquire the 9 rune keys that gives you control of the portal gateway that appears after solving each puzzle on each of the 9 out of 700 levels that they are hidden in. After acquiring the 9 moonstones runes that seem to each resonate at a certain pitch, when put together these runes play a harmonic melody. There within the last realm a being born forth from the darkness, and you must know who the bad guy is, for he is hidden with chaos like a hostage situation. You must negotiate with the enemy to find a solution to release the captive gods, spirits, people and convince him to either defuse the process that will end all of you and the realms he is connected to, or have a way to pull off an Indiana Jones switch, defeating him while not harming the hostages, and defuse the trap all on one basic move or some variation that leads to the same solution necessary to complete the final puzzle. The secret to this, if you think you can accomplish this, is to turn and face the bearer of the first puzzle at the entrance to the underground maze beneath the statue of the Sphinx. For the chimera that you first encounter, who brings you the first riddle to solve, is the final boss in disguise. This is a near impossible task to overcome, for most do not even know how to battle a mystical creature such as the Sphinx for one, and all the tools necessary to progress to the final realm can only be acquired within. All the information about the background on chaos, the spells and mystical spells, the allies gained along your way that will be vital to your success in your solution to the final puzzle, control of the gateway. It all lay within 700 realms of Twilight Zone-worthy micro-pocket universes, each with their own specially designed puzzle that could be anything, and no puzzle is ever the same, so what might be the puzzle for one will not be the same puzzle for the next one who comes to challenge it. This is truly the most complex finger trap I have ever seen or heard about. And it's connected to every realm in the entirety of existence and beyond. It is said that only one man ever has challenged this place and won, but I will not reveal his name for one very good reason. When I was a child, I was drawn into this place many times. So much so that eventually one of the labyrinth guardians finally kicked me out for good, as he was tired of seeing me in a dangerous game that I had not consistented to challenging, and so he had to bring me back time and again. This was happening because someone in the labyrinth was trying to use me like a sacrifice. I've been told a few names as leads. One was a guy known to the FBI by the name of Dwayne, but I do not know his last name, only that he was a neighbor when I was a kid and wanted by the feds for smuggling cocaine and my ex-stepfather. Now it seems that many other kids are being drawn into the same trap I was drawn into, and describing things they only could have seen there in this labyrinth. One thing I know is that anyone who becomes a player in this game must give their consent, of their own free will, before the statue of the Sphinx. The chimera will appear in whatever form they perceive best and know it's there, and it will present you with the question and details of the challenge of the maze and the consequences for failure. Then it will present the first puzzle in the form of a riddle. Solve the riddle before the Sphinx logo. Another topic I wish to discuss is at the request of Turiel, the Angel of Justice. He wants me to give my opinion and insights into an egregious imbalance within today's system of justice, the defining beliefs that separate right from wrong, and the methods we use to maintain the right ways we live by and the wrong ways to live by. Now, since the days of King Henry II set into place a law that forever changed the laws of justice, and upholding it through punishing those who are proved to have acted wrong and are labeled criminals and punished for their actions, judged against them and being held responsible for them. Henry II designed a method that allows a person a choice between having their situation judged and the decision between innocence and guilt handed down by either the ruling power of that land's appointed individual who was given the authority to do so by those ruling powers of that land's decision, or to have the situation viewed and a decision given by 12 men of high moral and virtuous reputation within the region of that land's people. This method Henry designed and put into place as a working law of his people became a standard of justice that allows those in question a chance to be given a decision by someone not a part of a possible corrupted system by others who hold control over those who make these decisions. Now 500 years later, that method put into practice by Henry II is still used today in both the U.S. justice system and the country of its origin on England by the British Parliament, and is known as the option of a trial by jury. However, I have looked into this, and this system of justice is not just at all and not what it proclaims. In American courts, there is the practice whereby the presiding judge in a civil jury trial may overrule the decision of a jury and reverse or amend their verdict, and in any trial the judge is the ultimate decision maker and has the power to overturn a jury verdict if there is insufficient evidence to support that verdict, or if the decision granted inadequate compensatory damages. Also, within the system of a Supreme Court case, with rare exceptions, each side is allowed 30 minutes argument, and up to 24 cases may be argued at one sitting. Since the majority of cases involve the review of a decision of some other court, there is no jury and no witnesses are heard. You people have to be kidding. This is not a system of justice that is either fair, nor is it a system built by the name it bears. This is not the system that Henry II designed. His method is clear in the description above, and its reasons are sound and logical. You all have allowed the very corruption that Henry II had designed this method to counteract to set in place a way to deny true justice to be upheld. Right here is a major ulcer in your corrupted justice system. This inhibition to allow an option free of systemic influences is a major cork in your justice system's ability to provide a true unbiased judgment between a man's guilt or innocence, regardless of whether it applies to a specific ongoing case. It is a weakness that can be exploited later, and that is where the problem takes its effect and thus proves it to be faulty structure. No wonder so many innocent people wind up screwed in your courts. Fix this aspect here and I sense it will have a cascading effect that could lead to a major change to your country's systemic injustice. Thank you, Archangel Turiel, for pointing this out to me and us to them as well. May the Lord bless your times in need with his unseen presence when you need it most.
I figured out a few things here, so I'm going to list some short topic overviews to deliver the things that some are waiting for, some things that those are in need of, and I will continue my video's development of the topics with more details as I make them. It's a slow process, plus there are all these copyright rules they keep changing, trying to censor the public's ability to speak out, and conveniently hinders my path and progress forward. So enough complaining, let's get to brass tacks. First up is the strange storyline embedded in the Assassin's Creed game series involving the first civilization, called the Isu. Now hold on for this one. This storyline is being sent from across time and space. We are the world that perished from a solar flare from a massive coronal ejection. That storyline is us being sent by us further in the future, some 13,650 years ahead with those I spoke of. The character Juno is the YWVH hacker I was talking about, who corrupted the simulation matrix that will retrieve our life force signatures and transfer us into new bodies, basically restoring our species, who will then send that information that influenced the game's design and embedded itself within the plot line's concept. Remember to transmit and receive data from across time using Einstein's theory of time travel concept. We would have to simply send a signal out far enough, say 5 years, then relay the signal back to Earth from there and secure a link. Turn the satellite to view Earth that would record an image from the time when we sent the signal 5 years ago. Then, when the signal arrives for us to detect and process, another 5 years will have passed. Now, adjusting this concept, you can view the universe from the alpha to the omega by adjusting the rebounding signal, and thus view the origin of the universe once you calibrate the signal to travel beyond the confines of our observable universe. I would explain more, but I would be wasting my digital breath, considering Einstein conceived this theory in 1943, which means they've had plenty of time to figure this out, and I'm sure they have, because of Darwin's law that says you don't become a force that can control an entire nation by staffing your regime with stupid people. This isn't exactly time travel itself, and expect a flare of aggression to soon follow, as is topical to occur right after these kind of incidents, because I'm being blocked from explaining it clearly, which means someone has already caught onto this and are making sure no one else follows. Most likely China, considering recent events and their over 200 god pantheon that are like mock doppelgangers of all the world's religions, as if they are going to become the world conquerors and topple the place of the empire who actually succeeded in this. You forget that you're entering a challenge that already has been won. Assyria won the battle that was waged for world domination. They conquered the past and future kingdoms already. That's why they claim the title of world domination, and Hitler, Napoleon, Khan, Caesar and others failed in their attempt to dominate the world. In fact, to add insult to injury, do you really think your efforts to achieve this were of your own conceit and design? You have only been making Assyria the tools they can utilize in our era to lay siege and conquer us in the midst of all this. Now on to the next topic is my opposition coming from my old place I grew up as a kid. Those influential flies in my soup that have been sold an outdated opinion of me from those who knew me when I was young. Let me just get right to it and stop playing cloak and dagger games, Liz. I know that it's you because you approached someone who I had shown kindness to when everyone else treated him like dirt. convincing him he was nothing more than a retard, but I remembered that he had not always been that way, and that before the ignorant decision to jump him around on bipolar medication and the typical teenage endeavors of drinking, something all of us have tried in those years at some point, had a diverse reaction that took a kid that was even cooler than I was as a kid, and caused him to become stuck with the mentality of an 8-year-old for the rest of his life. I don't know which was more tragic, this or the fact that he wasn't bipolar at all and didn't need the medication in the first place. Looking at things now, I have to wonder whether that was an accidental decision or was that someone's intended purpose. All along, as there are further attempts that just against me that went on in my youth. So my dear ex-con lesbian trucker looking former Jenna Jameson turned Bruce Jenner overtime girlfriend of mine. You see, because of my standing by him and treating him like you all couldn't, as a normal person, he held respect enough for me to tell me about you and your associates approaching him and drilling him for details and the plans he overheard you speaking about. So let's cut the bullshit. You use and manipulate, threaten and upset so many people's lives to get your revenge against me. You cast out daughter into the dangers of that molesting asshole who I hear had a tragic accident not once but 8 times in the stomach. To you, my good man, I cannot condone your feed, but I will extend you this since my daughter has already reached out to thank you, I hear. So I will tell you this as promise, something I do not often give, that when your time comes and you must face your time in hell for the life you have taken, as an appreciation I will do what I can within my authority in hell as its keeper to make sure you suffer as little as possible for that deed. And as usual, I find the Lord has already given me the means and supports my honorable endeavors, as I have been given the insight and knowledge that can save your soul from the wages of murder. And now that information given to me makes more logical sense. The work has already been done and can be found in my video library labeled The Wages of Sin. As I said, the Lord's works are usually solutions that can be applied to multiple problems, as these works have already solved many issues. So wherever and whoever you are within the Florida penal system who killed the man who did such things to those I care for, before I reach the end of my road as Lucifer and can feel the all-consuming detestment for all of humanity slowly setting, and by this I can see the road ahead that will bring me to the path in my fall as Satan, mankind's adversary that will not give 2 shits about your problems or cries for help. I know heaven has done all that they can to stop this from happening, as has God, so because of this I know that the time has not yet come, but I can feel it is not too far away. Those who can't seem to grasp what monster you have helped make, let me ask you something. What kind of adversary or danger do you think would rise from someone who can talk into and turn the very elemental cycles around him, defy the confines of flesh, and appear wherever and whenever he chooses? Even if I was sitting in the deepest hole in prison, I could project myself to Cancun, Mexico, and feel the breeze of the ocean, or to the most remote forest location, nerve tread by the feet of man, to witness the most amazing waterfall no one has ever seen before, or fall asleep gazing at the stars from the surface of Pluto. What kind of nemesis do you really imagine rising from this and the wickedness of the world we live in today? And you might begin to understand why God has taken so much effort into trying to do what he can to help. Now the reason I am mentioning all this is because, Liz, you have turned people against me with an image of who I was 30 years ago. A boy before he was even old enough to drive, but much has happened since then, and I am not that boy you once knew. I am a much more honorable individual since then. These obstacles from the covens approach me with your image painted from my youth, and approach me as if I am some sin-consumed and blinded fool, but you know nothing of what I have become since then. But according to my inquiries, you are but one of many who threaten my life and those I care for by corrupting their roots. Now I have other things and people to help. Good luck, and know that I am not responsible for the way your life has turned out. You did that when you abandoned her to that man's sinful intentions, even though he is dead now, as is your last husband, who died so mysteriously. I'm surprised no one has come asking questions, but that is the corruption of the Florida justice system for you. Good luck dealing with the omens I have bore upon your life for your iniquity within your heart.